G'day folks and welcome to the Vookcast, Australia's Nintendo podcast. My name's Oliver Brandt and in this episode I'm joined by Michael Goncalves.
Hey team.
And Luke Henderson.
Hello there.
Angelo is away this episode, but we've got a great episode for you, a very long episode too. All about a long list of Switch 2 details and a whole lot more. But first, let's talk about the financials. Actually, before we do that, we have been off for a while. It's been about 6 weeks since the last episode went out. We have had a lot going on in our lives, so apologies for the delay. But because of that, this episode is going to be like 40 hours long, so we have a lot to get through.
So what you're saying is this is going to be a normal length episode?
Yeah, it's going to be a normal length episode. If anything, probably a little bit on the shorter side. So let's talk about the financials. The end of the financial year for Nintendo had its financial release like a week ago. It's about what we expected. The Switch is very much wrapping up. About 152 million Switch consoles sold. Nintendo expects to sell 4.5 million of those throughout the next financial year.
Yeah,
something like that. So theoretically, it seems like the Switch is still on track to become the best-selling console of all time, but we don't know for sure until it actually gets there. And we don't know what the Switch what Switch numbers are going to look like after Switch 2 comes out, whether or not people are still going to buy it, whether or not there's going to be price drops, or there's a whole range of factors that could change whether or not that happens. But it does seem at least that Nintendo is sort of on the track to have the Switch becoming the best-selling console of all time until Sony finds another 5 million somewhere that they forgot to report.
Look, I was going to bring that up. I refuse to acknowledge that Sony found another 5 million consoles 12 years after they stopped making the damn thing. If 12 months later they said, hey, the last run we managed to sell them all, yeah, okay, whatever. But even 2 years, you'd be going, hang on, how did you not know you'd sold this many consoles 2 years after you stopped production? But a decade and change? No way in hell.
Yeah, it was such a weird thing to do. It screams insecurity so badly, and I'm just like, come on.
Well, the weirder thing about it is that Jack Tretton, or whatever his name was, the then CEO of PlayStation, said it, but it took PlayStation officially 9 more months to confirm the number.
Yeah.
I
think they're just making shit up. They just want to be known as the one with the best-selling console, but
100%.
I think the Switch will get there regardless. I think that it will be on store shelves long enough to make that happen.
And when Switch 2 comes out, if they put a price drop on Switch, that would help as well.
Yeah, if it does get a price drop, it definitely, hands down, will beat it easily.
Yeah.
Other news on the financials, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are now the best-selling game in the series at 26.7, second best, sorry. 26.79 million units sold. That has overtaken Sword and Shield, which is on 26.72 million. So
literally difference of 70,000 copies. That's how small the gap is.
It's crazy how evenly each one has sold. You would think that would be, more, I don't know, it would appeal to people more, but it's pretty much on the money.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about this is that, obviously Sword and Shield has 3 years on Scarlet and Violet. So Scarlet and Violet is selling much, much faster, in the grand scheme of things. But, with a new game coming out soon and a new generation likely starting on the Switch 2 somewhat soon, I think we'll maybe get to 27 million units on Scarlet and Violet, and that'll probably be the end of it. It is still very much behind, Red, Blue, Green, which combined have, I think it's just on 30 million, 31 million or something like that.
It's Scarlet and Violet that's getting the perf patch on Switch 2, right?
It sure is, yep.
Yeah, that'll definitely help that problem, I think.
I definitely think it will. I know people, I've been speaking to people who are like, oh, I'm finally going to buy it. We'll get to that story a little bit later, but yeah.
Well, I was just going to say too, Scarlet and Violet also had 2 pretty chunky expansions, and I don't think Sword and Shield had anywhere near that amount of content.
No, the first Sword and Shield expansion was like a little bit of a story, but it only lasted like an hour and a half. And then Sword and Shield Part 2, I mean, it had a story, but it was basically just like you can fight the legendaries now, and that was it. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, but it was all in the same area, right? There wasn't like a new land to explore. So I think that's probably
there
helped.
was. It was just tiny.
Yeah, but Scarlet and Violet had pretty big new locations.
Huge,
I think that's helped as
new
well.
Locations,
Especially when they did the reprints where they included the DLC. So
yeah. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD sold 1.27 million units, which cool. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was not mentioned in the results, which means that it did not break 1 million copies sold.
But it also only launched on March 20, which is like 11 days before the end of the period. So
yeah, and we know that like Xenoblade Game Center, I mean, they usually sell about 1 million to 1.5 million in the first like 2 or 3 months, and then like another 1 million throughout the rest of their life. So you know, it probably got over 1 million. We just don't have the numbers for it, and won't have the numbers for it probably ever.
We'll see what happens.
I'm going to do our first off-topic tangent because I just got an email from EB Games.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
I'm pretty sure this is new. They're selling gamer beds now.
No, that's not new.
That's been there for. That's not new. Okay, cool. Well,
like
it's in the email.
It's like a loft bed, right? Or
yeah, it's like a loft bed and a normal bed.
It's from Rocker?
X-Rocker. Yeah, the normal bed is the X-Rocker Base Camp double TV Visa mount bed in black. But yeah, there's also a loft version as well. That's fucking crazy. God damn.
So what it is, that brand X-Rocker, they've done a whole furniture line for gamers. And of course, because it's for gamers, it's just covered in RGB.
Yeah.
So
$600.
Yeah.
For a loft bed. Jesus Christ.
That obviously doesn't come with the mattress as well. It's just the bed frame.
You can just get a loft bed that you could put a gaming PC in for the like half that price. That's insane.
Ollie. Does it have RGB though?
It doesn't. You're right.
Then what the fuck is the point?
God, it's all right. Yeah, sure. Fucking yeah. Can't wait for the new X-Rocker gamer toilet. RGB.
To be fair, EB Games don't give a flying fuck about gamers now, because if you go to their website, the first listing on their like main menu drop down is bloody trading cards. It's all trading cards, trading and merch, and then like PlayStation 5, I think is the first gaming thing, like the fourth one down, because they don't care about games. It's in their name, but they don't care about games anymore. So not surprising.
Trading cards. Sorry. So this is the list on EB's website. Trading cards, EB World Plus, clothing and lifestyle, pre-owned, which I guess is games, toys and games, and then you get to video games. So
it's even worse now than last time I looked at it.
Yeah.
And we don't have the article about the EB Games thing here to talk about today, do we? I don't think it's here, but we definitely should, because I would like to roast EB Games.
Yeah, okay, let's quickly talk about EB Games. I'm just saying, before we move on, Nintendo is predicting the Switch 2 will sell 15 million consoles in the first financial year, which would be a wild amount. Like, that's a huge amount. That's better than every console bar one, which was the Switch. 15 million consoles in 1 year, less than 1 year even. Like 9 months.
Yeah, it'd be like well, not even 4 months technically.
Yeah,
by a few days.
So that would be insane. Let's quickly talk about EB Games because there has been some BS with that.
Hang on, which one? Their retro stuff or their midnight launch stuff?
Oh, we don't even have time to go into the retro. Yeah, let's just talk about how much we hate EB Games. No, look, before we go into this, I will preface this with I don't necessarily hate the concept of EB Games. I think that for a lot of people in regional areas, EB Games is the only place where they can reliably get access to games and consoles. I live in a regional area in Tasmania. The next closest place where I could get that is a Harvey Norman that's an hour away, and it's Harvey Norman. Or if I travel for 2 hours, I can get to a JB Hi-Fi. Or I could travel 10 minutes and get to an EB Games. And that's kind of the rub there, is that EB Games is how a lot of people in a lot of Australia access video games, and that's a really good thing. Unfortunately, everything else about EB Games sucks. So yeah, let's quickly talk about the retro stuff, because I actually think there is some stuff in this regard that they're doing kind of well. EB Games is now selling retro games, and trading in, accepting for trade-ins, retro games as well, and consoles as well. But I don't think they're selling the consoles yet.
No, not yet. Just games.
But they are accepting them for trade-ins.
Yeah.
And repairs.
So EB Games for a long time has done hardware repairs on modern consoles. So what's active, the new stuff. Last year they started doing some trials for repairs of older consoles. I sent through a mate of mine who worked at EB Games. I sent my Game Boy in, and they like reapplied the front protective cover and cleaned up the battery connections and all that. So they're looking into it, but their big thing is that if you trade in a console to an EB Games, when it goes to a store, it's been serviced, it's been tested to work. So they need to have people trained up in how to restore, Nintendo Entertainment System and Mega Drive and PlayStation 1. So those things will take time.
Yeah. But right now they are selling retro games, which is interesting. Now, I will say the prices for most stuff is pretty decent in comparison. A lot of the stuff that they are selling is pretty decently priced. Like, I've seen some games that, like, I check them on eBay or CEX or like Cash Converters, and they're like, 10, 15, 20 bucks more. So there is some stuff that, they're doing well in that regard.
Yep.
There's also some stuff where they're not doing well. There is some real expensive shit in there.
I think also more importantly is that while I agree some of the prices for things to purchase are pretty reasonable, the trade-in value on games is just absolute dog shit. Like, there's games that are like, you could easily privately sell them for hundreds of dollars, like without a blink of an eye, and they're trading for like $10. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
So I traded in a bunch of games recently to my local store, which is now closed because EB wanted to save money. And they were just duplicates. So when people were selling, I've got these 5 Wii games, and it's like I needed like 3 or 4 of them, to end up with a duplicate. So I had a stack of just small duplicate games that I already owned. So I traded them in. One of them was Mad World from the Wii, because I've had that secondary copy for the longest time. And I got $3.50 with my EB Plus and level 4 membership, EB World membership applied to it. It's like, so I only got $3.50 because I was a level 4 member, which means I spend a lot at EB Games, and I was a paid EB Plus World member. It's like, yeah, I don't get it. But that game on eBay goes for, $8, $9. So it's like, if I wanted to sell it on eBay, I could get twice, if not 3 times the amount of money. But,
I think the theory that I've heard floated around is that basically EB Games just restored their old trading value databases from like the end of life of those consoles, which of course the trading values of stuff would be garbage, and then just hasn't really thought about it at all, which would make perfect sense to me, to be honest.
It makes a lot more sense than like building a brand new database for all of that stuff, because that would be like 30,000 games. So it's probably, they do have historical
way more than that, probably.
Yeah,
it'll be quite a bit.
So the stuff that they're doing well, the stuff that they're doing poorly, I think, they're not charging an arm and a leg for most of the games that they have. Like, I bought a fucking Wii game, a Dragon, I can't even remember what it was. I saw it, I was like, oh, a Wii game, it's $11, it's a Dragon Ball game, I like Dragon Ball and the Wii, so I just bought it, because it was cheap. And that's fine. Like, I would spend $11 on that game if I saw it at a garage sale or whatever. So, in that regard, it's good. I didn't have to pay extra shipping for it because it happened to be shipped from the same place that something I was actually buying was. So yeah, it's not terrible pricing for most games that aren't like the big collector's items.
Yeah, and look, as an option, if you're looking for a game and eBay happen to have it in store, and I will preface this with saying in store, then picking it up is probably not a bad option. The only thing that I dislike about EB Games is if you're buying it online, they don't tell you whether or not it comes with the original case or not. Like, you buy the game. It's like cool. You might end up with just the disc and nothing else, or just the cartridge when they start doing the older stuff, because their site doesn't tell you if it's was traded in with the original artwork or the original manuals or anything like that. CEX, I don't know how you pronounce that. I just call them that. But they do say that. They say if it's an original case or not. So, yeah, just be aware if you're buying online.
That's long been a problem with EV games as well, though. Like buying online, especially pre-owned stuff, you have no idea what you're going to get. Like I don't buy stuff I don't buy physical pre-owned games online because it could just it could be anything, right? It could be a perfectly preserved fucking case and manual and all of that stuff, or it could just be like a fucking dummy case that they had in the back and a disc slapped into it. Like it's not great, and I think that they should do more to do that, especially because the website does know which store it's at. So the stores have to enter the stock that they have when they receive games for trade-in and put them up for sale. So it should be factored into it. Like there's no reason to not have that system in place. Anyway, we could talk about this for hours. There are a lot of issues with EV games, so let's talk about another one. The midnight launch, or early launch.
Oh boy.
The breakfast launch for Switch 2. So in some places in the country there is a midnight launch at EB Games. In other places there is a breakfast launch where it's 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. depending on where it is. Now, when EB announced this, there were a few restrictions on that. You either needed to be an EB World Plus member or have a Fast Pass. Now, I know what you're thinking. What the hell is a Fast Pass? I've never heard of this in my entire life. That's because it was something new that they made up to apply to people who have traded in their consoles, their Switch 1 consoles, toward a Switch 2. So it's not just if you've traded anything towards a Switch 2, you could have traded in a PS5 towards a Switch 2. You're not going to.
And I think you have to do it by
May 20th or something.
I can't remember. By the end of this month, basically. Yeah.
Either way, so it was restricted to that. So if you wanted to go to the midnight launch or the breakfast launch, you would.
Which I just want to highlight, by the way, if for WA, that's 1 hour earlier.
Yeah, it's 8 a.m.
That is it's literally 1 hour earlier, which is just crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, you had to have either paid for EB World Plus, which is a scam and a ripoff, or it. Although I do have EB World Plus, which I'm ashamed to say, I was deeply concerned that Switch 2 pre-orders were going to be locked behind EB World Plus. So I was like, I can't afford not to because this is my career. So I bought EB World Plus. So yeah. Anyway, you had to basically either pay a lot or get a really bad deal on the trade-in in order to get your console at midnight. Then something interesting happened where an apparently internal memo that has not been verified, we can't say with certainty that this is real, but apparently an internal memo at EB Games has said that if other people come in that don't have Fast Pass, don't turn them away. You can still let them get their console, just be cool about it. And people were kind of furious about that because it's dumb, right? It's dumb. Anyway,
it's
the official
100% a grift, just straight up.
Yeah. But basically they were just they were lying. They were saying, oh no, if you want to get it at midnight, you have to be in one of these two positions. And it was just false. It was completely false. They would have given you your console regardless. Because of course, right? EB World, EB Games is a terrible company, but the staff aren't just going to be well, you haven't spent $50 a year on the staff are reasonable people. Most people who work at EB Games are good, decent people. I've never had super bad interactions with anybody at the EB. So the kind of people who would work for that little money, they're doing it because they like games, right? Because it's people don't get paid a lot, so they would be decent people, and it would be shitty if company policy was you have to be a dick to people who haven't given us money. That sucks. Especially when they have given you money. They've spent $700 to pre-order a console.
I've met many area managers from EB Games, and some of them are dicks. But the general staff in the stores are decent people for the most part.
Anyway, So the new official policy, because that got out, and then suddenly EB changed its midnight and breakfast launches. So the new official policy apparently is that people who have a fast pass, which again is like, why are they using this language that like
So
has
fast pass
never
is a
existed
Disney
before?
term.
Yeah.
Disney invented it in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was a term that they coined for you to go up and get a reserved time for a ride. So you would put your park ticket in a machine. It would say, come back between 11 and 12 in the morning, and this is 9 o'clock. So you'd go off and do something else, then you'd have a short wait time. That's what the term was used for, and it sort of became the go-to term for queue skipping, essentially.
Yeah. So yeah, if you traded your Switch 1 towards a Switch 2, or if you're an EB World member, you will now be served first at these early access launches, and everybody else who isn't can still go, but they will be served after the people who have done that first. So I think that's a better policy. It's not a good policy, but it's a better policy than just like lying to everybody about it.
There are only two problems with that. The first is that the staff will have no concept of who is in either of these buckets, who's a pass member or not, without checking on the computer to say, hey, show me your EB World card. Oh, okay, you're an EB Plus member, you go in that line. They don't have that system in place because everything's tied to their computers in the center of their stores. And the second problem that they have is that the stores will be given the minimum amount of staff possible. And again, so I will say this, I worked for EB Games for about 8 years, and my manager friend, they just closed his store last week. So I've been across the EB stuff for years. They have this policy where they provide stores with the barest number of staff they can get away with. Now, the way that EB Games do it, and I don't give a shit if I'm disclosing their corporate secrets here, is they give a store a budget, right? They'll say, oh, you've got $1,000 for the week, for example. That $1,000 goes to all the staff that are casual, and it's up to the store manager to decide how he wants to spend it. If they want to spend it all on launch day, great, but that means there's no additional staff for the rest of the week. So depending on the number of staff or the budget the store gets, your store might have one extra person on during the Switch launch window, on launch day, but they might have 3 extra people on. Most stores will only have maybe 1 or 2 people extra on in addition to like the store manager, because EB won't give them extra cash because that means they lose money. So it's just purely based on the fact that there won't be enough staff to check all this stuff, and they have no system in place to do so. Because you're not going to wait in a line, get to the front of the line, and be told, "Oh, actually, you're not a priority member. Go wait in another line," because then
they're just
people will get angry. Yeah,
they're just going to give you a console that you paid for, like every other customer. Like at the end of the day, right? Like these policies are like corporate money grabbing, and like the actual people in charge of implementing these policies, which is the actual staff in the stores, they don't give a shit. Like, let's be real, they don't give a shit. At the end of the day, just go. Don't pay extra. Don't subscribe to EB World Plus. Don't trade your console towards a Switch 2 because that's a terrible deal. You're getting like $200 off. Well, then
it's $200 off for a console and 4 games.
Yeah,
for like selected games.
That's true.
And you could get way more just like selling it on Facebook Marketplace. Like, just don't give them extra money. Like, just go.
Yeah.
And it will be fine. Even if you have to wait for like the 3 people who have like 15 billion carats to do that first, like whatever, right? Like if you go, you'll get your console. So yeah, that's the official Vook's advice. No, that's not. This is just my personal opinion. It is not the opinion of Vook's. I don't want to, say that you shouldn't give money to EB Games, but I also do personally believe that if you have an alternative, you should. Also, if you're in Melbourne, what is it like? What's that place?
Paper House Games.
Paper House Games. They're having a midnight launch as well, and you don't have to pay extra for that. You just have to pre-order the console.
And I think from memory, their console is 1 cent cheaper than everywhere else.
It is, yeah.
And Sydney in the Gamesman out in
Yep.
Pakenham, Preston, whatever the hell that suburb's called. It starts with a P. In Sydney. And if you're from Sydney, don't come after me for not knowing the suburbs of Sydney, please. But they're also doing it.
Please do it. Come after him.
Yeah.
If you're in WA, just get fucked, because we have really good like retail trading laws that prevent this stuff from happening. So We get to open an hour earlier.
If you're in Tasmania, it's just EB Games. But if you want to come to my house and just chill at midnight, we can do that. I'm not going to the midnight launch, but I'll be around. So
you can check. You can check for Ollie's address in the show notes down below. So
yeah,
I will also say too, for those who have ordered from Nintendo have specified that all orders, if ordered before, I think it's the 28th of May.
The 20th.
20th. Okay, so it's this weekend.
Yeah. So this
coming Tuesday.
Hurry up, man.
Monday, Tuesday. What day is 20th?
Yeah.
Tuesday.
So if you're listening to this show, because this show will probably go out on Wednesday. If you're listening to this now and you've not ordered from Nintendo, sorry. If you've ordered before the show comes out, you'll
and that includes all the accessories as well. So if you want that GameCube controller, get on it. Okay. And now it's too late by the time you're listening to this, but get on it.
Sorry, I'm just gonna add it to my cart literally right now.
Jesus Christ!
But I mean, look. EB Games being a grift company, that's fine. Their name, so EB and EB literally stands for Electronics Boutique. They were a kiosk in a mall in the US selling calculators and shit when they started. So over the years, they just keep adapting to whatever gets them more money. That's what they do. It's what they've always done. The fact that they're doing... Oh, we haven't even mentioned the fact that in America, GameStop, their parent company, is giving cans of Red Bull. You get one free can of Red Bull if you're an EB Plus member for their country. But the fact that in Australia, you can still order a Switch at EB Games, you can still order a Switch at JB Hi-Fi and the Gamesman. Nintendo, I don't know because they had that weird reservation system, but most places are still accepting orders for Switch. Whereas in the US, it's much harder. So reports have come out that we're getting double the allocation we had for the original Switch for Switch 2. So if that's true, you're probably not going to have an issue just walking into an EB Games on release day if you haven't even ordered one.
They've announced over the past couple of days that pretty much all the retailers in the US are going to have launch day stock. So it looks pretty I think if it's one positive thing we can say about Nintendo for this particular launch is that they have stock. It's been really, really good. Obviously, it's still hard to get one outside of Australia. Pre-orders still sold out. But it looks like, you'll have a chance on launch day, at least pretty much Australia, worldwide. And if you're in Australia and live in the dream, you can just walk in and order one right now. So go for it.
I mean, Harvey Norman is still taking orders for Switch 2. And, whether they have them or not is another thing. But
they're going to be taking pre-orders literally always, even if they run out of stock.
That's true.
Yeah. Although I will say, my partner just walked into a Harvey Norman on launch day of the Switch 1. He had pre-ordered it at EB, but then it was in the second shipment. And then he just walked into a Harvey Norman and was able to get a console. So, consider that.
For the longest time we heard that Nintendo were delaying the Switch 2 because they wanted to make sure there was enough stock. That was the rumor we heard for the longest time. And it appears to be the case. So yay for Nintendo.
Alrighty, let's talk about our second topic on the list. Some of these will be quite quick, thankfully. So Universal Pictures released a list of movies, and one of the ones so Universal is they own Peacock, and they want to make Peacock seem like a thing that is actually worth buying when it's not. So they put out this list of look at these films that are coming to Peacock immediately after they leave cinemas. And one of the ones on the list was Super Mario World. Now that's interesting because Super Mario World is not a thing that exists. But it's very clear that the next Super Mario animated movie by Illumination will be called Super Mario World. A few hours later, they updated that thing and removed mention of Super Mario World. We don't know if it's an error in the listing or it was put out too soon. I think it's most likely that that's the internal name that they're using for the film, and they just didn't really think about the fact that it wasn't public. But I mean, let's be real, it's going to be called Super Mario World. And it makes sense because at the end of the Super Mario Brothers movie, spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched it yet and stayed through to the mid-credits scene, it shows a Yoshi egg about to hatch, and that's the kind of big thing with Super Mario World was that there were Yoshis and shit. Although we did see Yoshi in the film, so I don't understand why that was a big thing.
Yeah, we saw they weren't green. They were all the different colors. They just weren't green running in the background. So I will say too, that list, like obviously the list is right because it's got Megan 2.0, How to Train Your Dragon, Bad Guys 2, all movies coming out. Nobody 2, that was the first time I'd heard that they were making a sequel to Nobody. And then like 2 hours later, Universal sent me the trailer for that one. But there's a movie in there, and I have no idea what it's called. I just think it's the dumbest name ever. It's called The Phoenician Scheme.
Sure.
And it's like, but nobody knows about the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are the traders that basically
that's why the
took all
movie's
the different
coming out.
languages. Yeah, but the Phoenicians are a group of people that took all the languages of the world and basically created the alphabet we know today. But nobody knows that, so the Phoenician Scheme as a name makes no sense because the name should draw you in, like Super Mario World, the movie, would draw you in. I just think it's a weird thing. So.
The cast is bonkers good. It's stacked. Benicio del Toro, Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray, Tom Hanks, Michael Cera, Benedict Cumberbatch, Bryan Cranston, Willem Dafoe. Sick.
Anyway, yeah, so that'll come out in like 2026, isn't it? April 26th?
Yeah, so
2026?
last Thursday of April next year for us.
And that entire list, bar him and the Phoenician Scheme, is all sequels or remakes. It's wild.
It was interesting that they just said Shrek, as if like the new Shrek film is going to be like a soft reboot. I mean, it probably will be.
They also just said Minions, but there's already a movie called Minions, so I'm guessing they just don't have the final names. rebooting Minions after 2 movies. No, I suspect it's just they don't have the final names, so they just put in.
Yeah, which makes Super Mario World even more suspicious because, like, if they were just using franchise names, then it would just be Super Mario. But the fact that they said Super Mario World means that that's probably what it's going to be. Now that could change between now and next year, but like in probably like 4 months' time, we're probably going to start seeing
Comic-Con in July. We'll probably hear about it.
Yeah. So
do you think in the movie we're going to see Mario punch Yoshi in the back of the head? I like the game.
I think they'll do it once as like a gag, like he'll be like choking on something, and then he'll like hit him on the back of the head, and then his tongue will like fly out, and then that'll be the only time.
See, I'm just imagining Yoshi being voiced by like Danny DeVito or something, and he gets punched in the head, and he turns around, and he's like, "Hey, wise guy, what are you doing?"
It's me, Yoshi.
Is Yoshi gonna be voiced, or is he just gonna like make sounds? Like, I don't know. He can talk theoretically, so yeah. I don't know. Fucking whatever. It'll come when it comes, and we'll get treated to, more Chris Pratt doing a very non-Chris Pratt voice. That's a joke. It's just Chris Pratt. Anyway, there was a direct. Shortly after we recorded our last episode, we knew that was coming though because Nintendo announced it. But it was the Mario Kart World Direct. We learned about the battle mode returning, which was nice. I mean, there was no chance that it wasn't going to be there. Also learned about free roam. Now, this is a really interesting thing, is that like, it seems like, I don't know, it's kind of a pseudo single player thing where you just like go around this big open world and there's like a whole bunch of challenges and stuff. There are hidden piece switches and you can collect special coins and costumes and like all sorts of stuff. So there's 4 players on one system, 8 players via local wireless, with 2 per console. So yeah, and 24 players online, which we kind of already knew from the announcement.
The fact that knockout tour,
yeah. And yeah, there are 50 playable characters that we know of so far, and all of them have unique outfits and stuff, as well. So
I will say too, the characters with the costumes, they also appear in the menu selection.
Yeah.
Because I got to play it recently, and so you got Mario, Luigi, and all the regular ones, and when you scroll across, it's like there's Mario in his racer outfit, there's Peach in her farmer outfit, there's Wario in his pimp outfit, right? It's like I hope they don't have like one listing for every character in every outfit, because that menu screen, there's no random selection either. There's just a giant wall of characters you scroll through. That menu, that character select screen would be massive.
It's certainly an interesting choice. You would think that they would just have a character and then you could, hit, I don't know, the right button and it will scroll through like a costume or whatever.
They did that with 8 Deluxe, with the Shy Guys and the Yoshis. It's like Yoshi, and then we go, what color do you want? So
I don't want to have to scroll through like 48 Mario variants to get to whatever character I play, which is Mario, so I won't scroll through them. But you know what I mean.
No, you got to play Cow. It was really funny. There were like shots from like the Japanese Switch 2 experience.
Yeah.
Where like they had like this 24 player multiplayer thing, and literally everybody picked Cow. So there's like screenshots out there of like just like 24 cows racing each other.
I have no doubt that if you get into any online race on launch day, it's just going to be all cow.
Yeah.
When I played Knockout Tour, it was mostly half of it was cow. I made the decision to play as Wario because he had a pirate outfit, and I put him on his pirate themed looking bike. It was sublime.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we didn't really learn much that was new in the Mario Kart World Direct. We have a little better idea of like how it works. And it looks quite nice.
Turns out the new Mario Kart game is a Mario Kart game and plays like a Mario Kart game. Who would have thought?
I was talking to a friend when he goes, "Oh, how was Mario Kart?" It was good as Mario Kart. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's right." I'm like, it's like telling someone that ice cream tastes delicious, and they go and get some ice cream, and they say, "Oh yeah, it was delicious." It's like, yeah, of course. It's just you know what you're getting going into this. I will say though, the open world stuff, the P switches that you activate trigger challenges, which is interesting. Whether how complicated they are, we don't know yet because they've not sort of broken them down. But the one thing that I liked about it was that playing both the Grand Prix, the solo race, and the Knockout Tour, all the AI characters, they are eager to get in the mix. So if you think about Mario Kart 8, when the character at the back has a lightning bolt, they'll hit it, but they don't really move up the pack. They don't like gain ground on you. That's usually only the races in like 2, 3, and 4 when you're in first place that really pose a challenge because they're getting shells and they'll hit you and all that stuff. That doesn't happen in World, sorry. When you're at the back of the pack, the characters there's no giant gap between them. The characters will keep that gap close. They'll bash into you, they'll spam and attacks at you and all that. They'll do everything they can to get you out of first place. Like they're not aggressive, but they're willing to fight for a position, which is something we've never seen in a Mario Kart game before. So I think it's going to be surreal to see people playing this game because for the longest time Mario Kart has been pretty generic. You know the rubber banding, how that works. You know about all the bits and pieces. This one doesn't have any of that. So
I think something interesting that was revealed in this as well is that there is auto steer and auto accelerate still in this, which is good. It's good. Like for children and stuff, like it is a great accessibility option. So glad that it's still there. I hope it's not the default again, like it was in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because that was a weird choice.
In the build that I played at the Nintendo experience, the Nintendo Switch 2 experience, that was on by default. It was so annoying to be like get a great drift and then hit you hit the apex of a turn, and this thing goes, "Oh no, you're off the track," and it moves. It's like it kept breaking my drifting. It was annoying.
Also, but you can just like jump now, like that's a thing you can do in the game.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It looks nice. It looks like a really fun game, but it also looks like a Mario Kart game. So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to say on that, Michael, before we move on?
No, Mario Kart looked good. Me happy.
Yeah. We will probably, I don't know. I don't want to commit to a Mario Kart World stream because we're still like haven't done a
we're
fucking
so
Mario
bad
Party
at it.
Jamboree stream. But we'll try. Alrighty.
I think we should definitely commit to when Jamboree gets its update. We need to fucking play Jamboree.
Yes, we'll do it then. So Deltarune is coming out on launch day, isn't it, for the Switch 2?
Mm-hmm.
On launch day for Switch 2. And it is also coming to Switch 1. Now, this is interesting because this is the first game that has cross-buy between the Switch and Switch 2 versions of the game. So it will unlock at midnight in each various regions, so Australia will be among the first to get it. Although Toby Fox is pretending that we're not and just hoping that we don't spoil anything. Anyway, buying the game on Switch gets you the Switch 2 release, and vice versa. You just automatically get the other version of it. And the Switch 2 version includes higher resolutions, which, like, it's a pixel art game, won't really matter that much. There's a mini game that has like a mouse. There's a mini game that has like mouse support, and there's a few other things as well. Interestingly, so this is something that we didn't know if it was possible. We didn't know if a developer could offer a free upgrade. And now we know that that is possible, and we didn't know if cross buys were possible, and that is confirmed to be possible now too. So this is a really good thing for developers who do want to offer free upgrades or offer cross buy between their two versions of it, because now we know that it's possible. Unfortunately, this is the only one that we've had confirmed at all. Actually, no, there was another one. I can't remember what it was, but it's not 100% confirmed yet. I'll have to look into that because it may just be an embargoed email that I read. So I don't know. But the thing about this is it's quite strange. In Japan, it's not a free thing. So in Japan, you have to pay 300 yen, which is about $3.10 Australian.
It's literally $3 something, yeah.
Yeah. To unlock it. And now that's because of new Japanese laws. So recently it's I don't understand it exactly. I was talking to somebody about it and they gave me like the cliff notes and I still didn't really understand it. But like there's a law in Japan that basically means that like there needs to be some sort of administrative cost for delivering goods. That means that you can't just like offer it for free. So
I mean, if it was a physical good, yeah, sure, but a digital thing shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know, it's weird, but yeah. So it's 300 yen. It's a 300 yen upgrade or downgrade depending on how you look at it. If you buy the Switch 2 version and you want the Switch 1 version, then you have to pay 300 yen. But like that's such a small fee, and everywhere else in the world it's free, so whatever. But yeah, really, really good confirmation that developers can do this. Unfortunately, there are some developers who are very much not doing this, including Sega, who is not doing upgrade paths for literally any of its games. And like if you have Sonic X Shadow Generations and you want it on Switch 2, like if you already have it on Switch 1 and you want it on Switch 2, you just have to pay full price again. Or what was the other one that Sega's doing? The Rider Remastered. If you buy the Switch version or the Switch 2 version, you will need to buy the other version if you want to play it on the other console. It's very dumb. It's very Sega, I think. Sega is very much not one for doing that kind of thing, which sucks. But yeah, it is good to know that it is possible. And I think that means there will be a lot of developers, particularly smaller developers and publishers, that will offer free upgrades and cross-buy and all of the stuff, which, is good.
Hopefully it means that there's a bunch of indie titles that are already on Switch that get a Switch 2 edition that we just get because like I'm honestly looking at Shinin with The Tourist. I suspect because that game runs in like 8K on Xbox Series X or whatever it is. I fully suspect that we'll get that on Switch 2 at some point. It'll just be hey, you already own it, here you go.
Do you know what's funny about that is that like it runs at 8K resolution on PS5 as well, but the PS5 still can't output 8K resolution.
And it never will.
And it never will, despite the fact that it has 8K on the box, or did for a very long time.
It used to, yeah.
But yeah, I think The Tourist will probably be updated. And we will talk more about updates. Oh my god, we've still got so much more. All right, moving on.
Have we talked about EV games yet?
Let's not open that can of worms again.
There was a new Switch firmware version 20.0.0, a big number update, and it actually added features this time.
Oh my god.
This happened at the, there's still not like folders on the home screen, so like let's not get too excited.
That's going to be a Switch 2 exclusive.
So yeah,
7 years.
Switch firmware version 20.0.0, it added virtual game cards, which, we kind of knew how they would work, and they work roughly how we expected them to. There are some minor restrictions that like edge cases of people who have two consoles and were kind of cheating their way in. Well, not cheating, like they were using the systems the way that the system works to essentially get two copies of every game, and like that's not really a thing anymore if you want to play online games like Splatoon or whatever. But other than that, it works roughly how it's expected, and it works quite well. I like that with virtual game cards, when you download something or like redeem a code or buy something in the Switch eShop, you can now pick which console you want it to be downloaded to. Which, thank God, like that's huge. Also, if you want to re-download something, you can just go to the virtual game card menu rather than having to go into the shit eShop and then go to the re-download section and scroll. Because like I tried to re-download the fucking Yu-Gi-Oh game, and if I did that on Switch, because it's automatically like sorted by alphabetical, I have to go down and it loads like 15 at a time, and then you have to put loads more, and then like it's so bad on the eShop. But with virtual game cards, it just loads all of your games that you can re-download, and then you just load it, and then it's good to go.
You can
I think
also
it's a
access
really,
that
really
stuff on the website too now. The virtual game card stuff. So.
But yeah, it works very, very well, and I think it's a really good system that is very intuitive as well. I wish it wasn't restricted to only 2 consoles, just because I have 3 consoles, and I will have 4 when the Switch 2 comes out, but, you know, whatever. Game share was added to Switch 1, well, support for it, at least.
Hold the press, I just got a second email from EB Game.
How are they listening to us live?
They're just like, cease and desist, we're going to sue you.
It's about the dumb trade NATO coming this week.
Oh my god!
About trading stuff in, and it has the thing about the fast pass on there, and they've obviously added the no fast pass, no worries. You're still welcome to come and join the fun at our launch events.
All right. Another thing that was added in this update is the Switch 2 system transfer. So what you can do is that you can upload basically an image of your Switch to the cloud, and that includes Animal Crossing, your Animal Crossing save. It includes all of your Pokemon saves, and then that's specifically for Switch 2. So if you want to sell your console now, or trade it in at EB Games, which you shouldn't do, if you want to sell your console now in order to buy a Switch 2, you can just like upload all of your shit to the cloud, and then when you get your Switch 2, just like log in using that process and download it, and then you'll have your all of your stuff there. So this is really good because there are like there's a handful of games that like don't support cloud saves, which is dumb, and we've talked about extensively in the past. But in this case, you can do that. It also means that like trading in like your system in the future is going to be like if when Nintendo inevitably comes out with the Switch 2 OLED, you'll be able to just like upload it to the cloud and then trade in your console and then do it, and you don't have to like rely on the goodwill of EB staff letting you set up your console in the store, which
or
is how
take
it's
it
worked in the
home,
past.
transfer everything, and come back and then do a trade, which is what I used to do a ton of the time.
Yeah. So that's a really
my
good
mate was
system.
awesome for that. Yeah. I personally think it's great because it obviously takes everything off the machine. But if they update it that it doesn't, like imagine being able to have a backup of your Switch online, stored somewhere, that if you lose your Switch or whatever, you just get a new Switch, sign in, go restore from backup, bang. Like we're one step away from that being there, and I think that would be a fantastic addition. This is great, but I think it's like they just need to tweak it just a little bit to add that one thing in there. So
this is probably the most consumer friendly thing that Nintendo has done in a long time, and it's really, really good. Like
the eShop is now red. That's fun. They just changed the color of the eShop.
Well, they changed it back because it was red a while ago when Mario 35 shit was happening everywhere.
Yeah, but now it's just red. They've used red for the eShop, which are cool.
Rest in peace, Mario 35.
Yeah. And icons on the home screen have been added, and they changed the design of each of them. They also changed a bunch of icons. So there were a ton of icons that were changed, mostly just minor changes. But the Donkey Kong icon has erased the rare render of Donkey Kong and is using the new Donkey Kong Bonanza.
You got Thanos snapped out of history.
Yeah. To be fair, that design of Donkey Kong's been around for 30 years now. Like that, obviously it's evolved slightly over the years, but it's basically been the same one. Mario and his direct group got an upgrade 2 years ago with Wonder, so it makes sense that Donkey Kong finally got. He went to Hollywood and got a nip and tuck after the movie. So,
did you see the new Diddy design?
Yeah, it's great.
I can't get it out of my head. He's
pregnant. He's pregnant.
He's pregnant. It's great. They made him a little fat, which is great. Love it. They also took the Nintendo logo off his hat, which weird choice, but okay.
I mean, after seeing footage of Bonanza and seeing how expressive DK is in that game, I totally understand the design change. Like, he is incredibly expressive, and it looks like, that's a major design element of the way the game is meant to work. So
one of the things that I love playing it is like as you run past things, if you run past something that's important, he'll like turn his head and look at it. And if it's like Banandium, which is like the coins and shit, and the bananas and all that, the rocks, whatever, when you go past that, the tongue comes out and he starts like salivating at them. And if you run past it, he has this like expression of like he's hurt. That if you've run past the giant bananas and haven't bashed it open, he gets like this expression of like, but why? It's such a like the expressions in that game are just stunning. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's nice that there's a good system update for the Switch that actually added new features, because we've had like I think the last like 7 major numbers have not had any new features or changes at all. So yeah. I suspect that going forward, like this is like the last major Switch update. I think we'll see a whole bunch of like minor ones.
I'm pretty sure the Wii U got a big update after the Switch launched, but I think that was more like security focused. Yeah. But they upgraded the number a fair bit. So yeah, look, I don't think we're gonna get any giant new features added to the Switch going forward.
Yeah, I think there might be things that like change or adjust like game share and all of that kind of stuff. Like there will be issues found with it that
it'll be absolutely hilarious if Switch gets folders a year from now for no reason whatsoever.
And if Switch 2 doesn't, that would be very funny.
Yeah.
So another thing that is interesting is like this game key cards. We've talked about this in the past. Like, a game key card is a physical card that is a digital download. So there's no actual game on the game key card, but you put it into your console, it downloads it. It's kind of halfway between like a physical card and a digital release. It gives you the benefits of both and also the drawbacks of both. So
some might say it's a key for the game on a card.
Yeah. But the good thing is that it ostensibly provides an alternative to a code in a box. Now we're going to talk about that in a bit, because it is not a replacement entirely, because some people are still doing code in a box. But it is supposed to be the replacement for code in a box, and the alternative there is that like this game key card's very clearly labeled on both the card and the box. You know what you're getting when you buy it, and it's essentially just like you buy it and then you download it. But you can still resell it, you can trade it, you can give it to a friend, they can play it too. It's a decent system that deals with a problem that Nintendo has that it can't really get rid of, and that's the very expensive flash memory that is required for games. So Marvelous USA has confirmed that outside of Japan, at least, its Switch 2 titles are on a game card. So that's Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion, which I'm very excited for, by the way. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar and Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma are all on real game cards in the West, which is fantastic. In Japan, all of those games and most third-party Switch 2 games,
actually, apart from one third-party game, are all game key cards.
Yeah, they're all game key cards, which is a bummer for Japan, but yeah.
Hey, they get a super cheap console, they can suck this up.
That's true. Split Fiction is a code in a box because EA fucking...
Look, from what we've heard about that game being so last minute, as in coming to the platform, it doesn't surprise me they probably weren't ready for it. We know Madden's coming. That's already on the eShop. You can already pre-order Madden for Switch 2. So hopefully they don't do that going forward. But I'm giving them a slight leeway based on we've heard about the delay in starting this port. Outside of that, they don't get any more leeway from me on it.
Yeah. The Switch 2 edition for Civ 7 is also just a code in a box that gives you the upgrade for it, which sure. It gives you the base game as well. So it's a code that gives you the base game and the upgrade pack, so you can play it on Switch 1 as well, which is fine. Also, there's some weird thing where at least with Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, Marvelous have said that you'll be able to use the Switch 2 edition card on the Switch 1, which we don't really know how that's going to work yet. They've said that you can do that. I mean, there's so much that we just won't know until.
Look, they said it's possible. They haven't explained how it's possible.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah. In Australia at least, there are a bunch of game key card releases. Including you don't have all of them on here. But yeah, there's Yakuza 0, Hogwarts Legacy, Hitman, Sonic X Shadow Generations, Rider Remastered, and
Street Fighter and Bravely Default.
Street Fighter and Bravely Default, yeah.
We already knew about those, so I didn't put it on the list, but yeah.
Yeah. So those are all game key card releases, which is disappointing, but as I said, like it's a problem that Nintendo, like, they can't really do anything about. Like, it would be nice if flash memory were cheaper, but it's just not. And that's kind of something that we're gonna have to grapple with here. Like, I think, the issue that next generation is going to have for PlayStation and Xbox is a different one, in that game sizes are getting so big now that they just can't fit on a Blu-ray anymore. We've already seen.
I mean, Doom on, I think it's PS5, is basically a code on the disc. You put in, it goes, oh, you've got to download the game. And I think Forza Horizon 5 on PS5, it was only like 20 gig on the disc, and you had to download the rest. So, I mean, even Avowed got a retail release, but it was just a code in the box. So
yeah,
it's already happening with other platforms as well. It's not a Switch, it's not a Nintendo only thing, but it still sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's we're kind of seeing at a point where, like, we're going to start seeing a more digital focused world for consoles, and that is kind of a bummer. But I mean, PC gaming is already 100% digital. Yeah, it's, I don't know. We've been moving towards it for a long while, and it just seems to be accelerating lately, which is kind of a bummer, but what can you do? We have at least seen that digital releases on average in Australia for Switch 2 games do seem to be a little bit cheaper than their physical counterparts.
Yep.
I was about to say, this has been probably my one gripe, at least in Australia, for game key cards. There are games that are still cheaper digitally than they are on the game key card version, which I understand there's still a small cost associated with putting out a physical release, even if it's a game key card, but it's like $20 difference, which is just fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to release a game on a game key card, it should be the equivalent price to digital, really. Like, you need to, like, eat that cost, whatever it is, which I assume is very, very much almost nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was talking to I was at Gamescom Latam recently in Brazil, and I talked to a bunch of indie devs and indie publishers there, not just from Brazil but from all around the world, and a lot of people in that indie space were very excited about game key cards, not because they want to skimp out, but because it is cheap enough apparently, and cheaper than, from what I understand, I'm not going to say this is 100% confirmed, it's just something that I heard from a publisher, but they said that it was cheaper than even just a 1 gigabyte Switch 1 card. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Cheaper than the cheapest Switch 1 card by a pretty considerable margin by the sounds of it. So,
like, storage space wise, you would need, if it's literally just like a key file, which I'm assuming it is, like an encrypted key file, it'd be like a couple of 100 kilobytes, if that.
Yeah, it'll be,
you could just have the smallest possible, like, storage.
It'll be an encrypted download key, and like the metadata for, like, the publisher information, the
image,
the image, all of that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, you would need 512 kilobytes at most, really. So yeah, and they were very excited about this because it means that indies now, with game key cards, have the opportunity to have retail footage, like retail space, without spending shit tons of money. And like, yeah, they're not like real physical games, but like
sometimes just getting something on a shelf is enough.
Yeah. An indie developer can now have a game on a shelf in Australia. Like an indie developer from, rural Canada can now, like a solo developer, can now afford theoretically to put a game on a shelf in Australia, and that's something that they couldn't do before. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a good thing in some regards. Like, I think for developers, unfortunately, because it is so cheap, there are going to be some companies that just be like, well, we'll just go with that anyway. Like, we'll just go with the cheapest possible option. Like, Rider Remastered. Yeah. Rider Remastered and Sonic X Shadow Generations, they didn't need to be game key cards. Like, you could have just
sizes
put
next
them on
to the lists there.
So Sonic X Shadow Generations is 24 gigs and Rider Remastered is 17 gigs. Like, you could have put them on the real card, but like Sega is allergic to spending any money for its releases. So look forward to the LRG Yakuza 0 that costs you $300 Australian in like 4 years time.
I mean, the fact
that
LRG are also doing Rider.
Yeah, go. We're probably going to talk about the same thing. LRG, I think, have said that, and their wording here is very particular, that all their numbered releases will be on real cards for Switch 2, which, I get, but I feel like it's a bit of a cop out. You can just unnumber something and then be like, oh yeah, we said all the numbered releases will be on real game cards. So I think it's I don't know.
Yeah, like LRG have done. They just put up like pre-orders are open now for Tomb Raider, the 4 through 6 games. So yeah, lovely. But they did that a year ago with 1 through 3, and then 4 months later they popped up a JB Hi-Fi on card anyway. It's just like, because they're doing it, but they're also just doing a standard release because it was a big thing. So
it was super funny though. Just I want to say, like, to go onto the LRG website and they've got these huge fucking banners that say Forever Physical, and then it's like, oh, game key card. That is so funny to me.
And people raged at them for it. And they're like, no, but this is the Sega release. It's like, I don't give a shit. Your thing is that you're Forever Physical and you're not giving people the game. That's let's be real though, it's
LRG. If they did put real Switch 2 cartridges out at launch, it would probably fry your console like all of
the cartridges. And this isn't new for them, right? They've done shitty things where they've made bad like cartridge releases. They've like had CDRs and DVDRs for game releases as well. So they're just not honest, which is really not a great place to be for a company.
Allegedly. In case you're listening, LRG. We don't levy these claims about you. We're just repeating other people's claims. There are plenty of sources that people have talked about this in the past. But also, I would not give any money to LRG ever. So, Switch 2 digital upgrade packs. We kind of know how much they cost now. You would think.
Sorry, I was going to say before we moved on that I think I chatted about this in our Vookcast chat, but obviously it's been so long since we recorded. But I was very torn between whether I should continue with physical games or move to digital for Switch 2. And as someone who's a very big physical collection person, I think I've just made the choice to hard cut it and just move fully forward with digital games for Switch 2. Because I think this is just a canary in the coal mine situation. I don't think it's going to be a great landscape for physical releases for Switch 2, like at all.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think the price of flash memory will come down eventually. And, I think, the rumor is that there aren't that many different sizes available for Switch 2 cartridges. We don't.
Well, the rumor is that there's one. It's just the one size and that's it.
Yeah. Or we can't confirm those rumors. So, it could just be a game of telephone. But, I mean, I think if that is true, I would 100% expect that more sizes are coming down the line. But at the moment, that's not the case. But it is very much a canary in the coal mine situation. And I think, like, with most digital versions of these games being cheaper, there's really not any reason to, like, go hard on physical anymore. Apart from just, like, if you like having a nice thing on your shelf. Which
the only problem that I have with all these games going digital, and it's a problem that shouldn't be a problem, is like Hitman 61 gigabytes, right? That's a quarter of your Switch 2 storage if you get that game day one. Mario Kart is 24 gig or something like that. And let's say you grab the 2 Zeldas. So let's say you grab those 4 games because you get the Zeldas because you already own them. and you get the upgrades to the Switch 2 editions. Those 4 games alone bring you up to about 150 gig. So a good chunk of your internal storage is gone. And you might just go, oh sure, I'll buy the $80 SD card that's Nintendo branded that everyone's selling. You throw that in there, cool. You've doubled your storage, right? But Star Wars Outlaws is about 80 gig on other platforms, so it should be something similar on Switch 2. If we finally get a Call of Duty game, those games are averaging like 100 to 130 gigabytes, every year. So we're supposed to get Call of Duty at some point because they signed that agreement 2 years ago. So the fact that we're starting to get games that are, 80, 100 gigabytes from third parties, if they're all digital, that's fine. But we need to have the storage, and right now the cost of the cards, the SD cards, it's not making going full digital an affordable option. So
yeah. But that was something that we saw with like regular SD cards with the Switch as well. When the Switch launched, regular SD cards were quite expensive, probably about the same per gigabyte as they are now with the Express cards. But that came down so quickly, and part of that was because other devices were also using micro SD at the time, and that was just bringing the prices down. But the Switch really drove the price of micro SD down drastically because they existed obviously before for like a decade. And it wasn't really until the Switch came out that the prices started coming down drastically. And I think the same thing is probably going to happen with SD Express. It's just going to be a bit slower.
I think the one thing that worries me about the SD Express or micro SD Express format at the moment is that they've already talked about the maximum capacity being 2 gigabytes, and we're launching with 1 gigabyte cards. And if you're going to have...
terabyte.
No, sorry, 2 terabytes, my bad. We're launching with 1 terabyte cards, and if the maximum is going to be 2 terabytes over the entire lifetime of the console, like that's a little bit worrying.
Yeah.
Instead of having a carrying case full of Switch game cards, you'll have a carrying case of micro SD cards with little post-its going, this card has this game, this game, and this game. Yeah.
I do wonder though about like the optimization paths of these first releases of games like coming out, because I feel like some of them are just don't sound like they should be that large.
Angelo was talking in the chat about it, and I looked into it. So that micro SD Express that has Mario on the box and everything that everyone's selling for $80, the read speeds on that are 100 megabytes. So it's on the low end of the spectrum. Whereas the SanDisk one that they're selling separately that doesn't have the Mario on it, that's 800 megabytes for its read speed.
800 megabytes is the minimum for SD Express. So if it's not, then like it has to be.
The only place that I've found that had, so Nintendo's website doesn't have it, EB doesn't have it, JB doesn't have it. The only place that I saw had the listing of the read speed was Officeworks. The official Mario branded. That's what I'm saying though. The official Mario branded SD card, micro SD Express card, the only place that has a read speed listed is them. But that card is $80, but the same size from the same manufacturer without Mario on the box is $140. So,
but that's not available.
Same size.
That's not available locally though, right? That's going through some type of conversion from the US. Do we have them available locally?
Yeah. It's on Amazon. You sold from a local seller. I'll find a link after.
So unless it's sold by Amazon.com.au, I'm going to assume that that's imported. And with the tariff stuff that's happening at the moment with the US, that would be jacking up the price.
But there's also one from Camera House that's 512 gig for $180. But its read speeds are about 600. So yeah, the size isn't obviously going to be the only issue. Now it's going to be the read speed. Now Nintendo said read speeds will be great regardless, but it's like that's a whole other thing that people have to now think about. That wouldn't be an issue if all these games were just coming on cards themselves. Is my point. That was the point I was trying to get to.
I think the thing is we don't really know what kind of card reader Nintendo is using in the Switch 2, because right now the Switch cards that we've seen are SDXC cards, which means that they do have a maximum capacity of 2 terabytes. But the SD Express and I mean SD as a whole standard SD 7.0 does support up to 128 terabytes. So if it's an SDUC, which is ultra capacity, if it's an SDUC reader, then we should be fine. It's probably going to be expensive, but yeah, it does go up to 128 terabytes, which is insane.
But I saw it was officially listed that it was max of 2. I swear that was a thing. Yeah, it's on the. Yeah, I did do a massive dive on this because I'm a massive nerd. Yeah, it's on the official specs. SD card express slot compatible with express cards only up to 2 terabytes.
Yeah, but that could be a firmware thing. You know, like
maybe
the 3DS is officially only compatible with cards up to 16 gigabytes, but you can get up to 128 gigabytes on that. So
yeah, right.
Because the card reader does still work. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, a ton of this stuff is super speculative because
yeah,
Nintendo has been more forthcoming with information than usual, but it still doesn't mean that I don't have 4 trillion questions.
Yeah, so let's talk about Switch 2 edition upgrades or non-Switch 2 edition upgrades as well, because there are some that aren't officially Switch 2 editions that you can still upgrade to. Anyway, both of the Zelda games in Australia at least are $20 to upgrade to the Switch 2 edition. They're also included for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members, so cool. Kirby and Mario Party, and presumably any other game that does actually come with an expansion, in addition to the upgrades, etc., are $30 each. Now, this isn't a set thing because we know that Rune Factory and Story of Seasons are both having $15 upgrades. Civilization 7 is a $16 upgrade, and the pricing is variable basically, and the way that it works is variable as well. So some will just be like an add-on DLC essentially, right? So, in the case of Civ 7 and Rune Factory, that's a DLC that you buy on the eShop that entitles you to the Switch 2 version of the game. And then other things fuck this game, but Hogwarts Legacy is a conditional discount. So if you own the version on Switch 1, you will get a discount down to $15 for the Switch 2 edition of the Switch 2 version of the game, not the Switch 2 edition. So it's going to work differently, and there are lots of different options for developers to make it happen, which makes it all the more disappointing that Sega has decided not to. I'm really annoyed with Sega about this. I love Sega's games, but they're just being shit about this, especially because almost all of Sega's games that were on PS4 and Xbox One had free upgrades to their PS5 and Xbox Series versions. And for some reason, they're just not doing the same with the Switch. I don't understand why they're not doing that. I mean, greed probably, because the Switch is by far Sega's best platform when they have a multi-platform release. So I'm guessing they just want to squeeze as much as they can out of it, but it is shitty anyway. And yeah, it is. There's a lot of different ways that this can happen, which
they did one nice thing with Sonic X Shadows Generations, is that you can transfer your save into the Switch 2 version. Once you do, though, you can't transfer it back. So even if you own the Switch version of the game and then the Switch 2 version, once you transfer your save, it's stuck there. That's one of those things that they didn't say that initially, and it came out a day or two after that you could. So, yay for them being normal.
Yeah, there's a bunch of minor news as well. One of these we'll probably talk a lot about. So the Switch 2 will have 258 user profiles, icons at launch, which is nice. It's up from the 111 that Switch had. That includes things like all of the Pokemon starters that have ever existed. A whole bunch of other franchises are now getting, representation as well. And as far as we know, this hasn't been confirmed yet, but as far as we know, user profiles that you have earned through limited time spending platinum points or whatever will still be available on the Switch 2 as well. So if you currently have one that the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 one or whatever, right? You can likely still use that on Switch 2. We don't know with 100% certainty, but it does seem like that's the case. So cool. The Switch 2 will also feature a battery optimization and battery health thing, which is basically just telling the Switch 2 not to charge once the battery hits 90%, which I mean, it's fine. Batteries already do this natively, right? Modern batteries never charge to the point where they're going to be damaging themselves anyway. This is just an extra, an extra limit so you can have it just a little bit lower and make it last a little bit longer. But your battery on your Switch, even if you keep it docked like always, is never going to get to the point where it's damaging itself. It's just the charge cycles mean that it will inevitably lose capacity. And the same will still be true of Switch 2, but like when you drop it a little bit lower, it will be fine. You can also lock the device to require a pin for use, much like phones and tablets. I think that's something that you can do on Switch 1 as well, but it's kind of annoying, so whatever. This next one is frustrating for so many reasons.
Let me readjust myself in my seat to get into rant mode.
So Nintendo has officially confirmed that the Switch 2 will only support VRR or variable refresh rates in handheld mode. So Nintendo confirmed during the Switch 2 announcement that the Switch 2 would have VRR on its display. On the built-in display, it's 120 Hz screen. VRR was in there, and the version of VRR that it's using is NVIDIA's G-Sync. Now, it also said on all of its Western websites, never on the Japanese website, but all of its Western websites, it said that you can also do VRR while docked. We now know that that is not the case. It was an error, Nintendo says. They've officially confirmed that it will not support VRR at launch. Now, they were asked if they plan to support it in the future, and they said that they don't have anything to announce right now, which is a very Nintendo thing to say. We don't know if that's going to happen in the future or not. Now, for those who don't know, VRR essentially matches your screen's refresh rate to the frame rate of the game, which helps eliminate screen tearing and stuttering caused by a mismatched refresh rate.
Unreal Engine 5.
What's that?
I said stuttering caused by Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, essentially. Now, it doesn't make the game, like, it doesn't make frame drops less noticeable. You can still realize when frame drops are happening. They just have less of a visual impact because the stuttering and the screen tearing is eliminated there. So it's not perfect. It helps essentially reduce the visual impact of dropping frames. It will still feel worse than a game that is running at a full 60 FPS, but it will look a little bit better. And a lot of people are susceptible to motion sickness when screen tearing happens. I'm one of those people. So yeah, it is a good thing to have. But it won't have it while docked, and that is kind of a problem because most new TVs in the mid or high range now do have VRR. Both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S support it, although the PS5 did take 2 years to implement it. That was likely just a decision from Sony because none of their TVs supported it yet, and they wanted to not introduce a feature that they themselves couldn't take advantage of. Sony's implementation of VRR is also kind of shit.
Pretty sure it's broken at the moment. It doesn't really work properly.
Yeah. So yeah, there's an obvious reason for this. Michael and I have talked about this in the past, but basically the Switch, because it uses USB-C to, get all of the video signal out when you dock it, that means it has to use the DisplayPort signal. There's something in USB-C called DisplayPort Alt Mode, which is basically an alternative mode for USB-C. So rather than just like sending data, it essentially turns it into a DisplayPort. Now, there was an HDMI alt mode previously in the USB-C spec, but that has been deprecated because the HDMI forum did not want to support it. Which, spot on for the HDMI forum. Good job, guys. Like, that is just exactly what you would expect from them. Like, anyway, because of this, Nintendo has to use DisplayPort, and that means if you want to plug it into a TV which doesn't have a DisplayPort, you need to convert the signal from DisplayPort to HDMI. Now, you can get a VRR signal over DisplayPort through a USB-C port, that's fine, and you can get an HDMI source having VRR as well through an HDMI port. But converting from USB-C DisplayPort alt mode to HDMI output and keeping that VRR intact is extraordinarily difficult. I've spoken to electrical engineers about this. It is extraordinarily difficult. There are exactly 2 devices that actually support this. One of which is the Steam Deck's dock, and another one is a third-party dock made specifically for the Steam Deck that does a really shit job of it. So the Steam Deck's dock also doesn't do it super well. It does a good enough job, but it's unreliable, doesn't work with all TVs, and only works with FreeSync supported TVs, which is an AMD proprietary technology. So, it doesn't really apply here because FreeSync isn't something that the Switch has access to. So it would need to be HDMI form VRR or adaptive sync, which are two different implementations of VRR. Because G-Sync, like there aren't any TVs that have G-Sync support. If it was the case, right, G-Sync, if a whole bunch of TVs had G-Sync, which is NVIDIA's proprietary VRR, then it would be fine. Because you can actually send that through USB-C and you can maintain that signal reasonably well. But yeah, it is, unfortunately, there is no easy way to do this, and that is unfortunate because the Switch 2 should have it when docked. Michael, lay it on us.
All right, so I think the first main problem I have was that if they knew this from the beginning, like so many things in the direct video had those little like asterisk warnings down the bottom for things, right? When they wanted to clarify something. Yeah. They could have clarified in the moment that when VRR was being discussed, that this was a handheld only feature, right? That didn't happen. So slight questioning on whether like what this timeline looks like. But that's just me being tinfoil hat. Obviously, all the Western websites had it listed on there, right? And they eventually removed it, which took a little bit of time. But once they removed it, they took an equal or longer amount of time to even clarify what was going on. Like, I don't understand, like, what was going on. Like, why? That's completely stupid. Clearly, they knew that this wasn't going to work. So they should have just updated people immediately. There are definitely people I know that have purchased products, like upgrades to things for this particular feature, which now doesn't exist, which is very, very annoying. This is the most Nintendo monkey paw scenario that I've seen for Switch 2 so far. Like, it's absolutely incredible. I think the thing that I've said it a million times, I'm going to say it again, is that Nintendo designed this. And I understand that it's difficult, right? But Nintendo has resources that are beyond what the vast majority of people have, right? Yeah. They have some of the best engineers in the world. I honestly think this was almost certainly a solvable problem for them. Even through custom hardware, right? They didn't have to use something off the shelf, which they almost certainly are.
I mean, see, the thing is, the chip is custom. It's a very custom chip for the Switch 2. So it is not sold in any other variant. Like there is no data sheet for it. It is an N variant, which means it was made specifically for Nintendo. So this is custom hardware.
That's even worse then.
Doing what it should. Well, yes and no. I think it's extraordinarily likely that Nintendo will try to fix this at some point in the future. Whether or not it actually does get fixed is another story, but I think Nintendo will definitely try. Whether or not that is like trying to inject the signal in a way that the chip can handle it and pass it through, whether or not that is working on some sort of signal processing path that they have within the dock, or they work with the company that made the converter chip to like have some sort of firmware update for the specific chip that passes it through. I think Nintendo will try to do that. Whether or not it's successful is anyone's guess, but yeah, it should have been something that Nintendo sorted out before the console launched and not after. And that's frustrating. But again, it's one of those things where it's like every electrical engineer that I talk to who works specifically in this space is like, yeah, it's possible, but like you have to be like real fucking hacky about it. And like even the Steam Deck's implementation is like the hackiest shit ever, and you have to like unplug and replug, and like some cables just won't work despite the fact that they're up to spec, and some Steam Decks, just because of the way that the USB-C ports are, just won't work for no reason whatsoever. Like it is so difficult to actually get this done, but it is Nintendo. This is the company that has frequently been the most profitable games company on the planet, like for like years on end now. Like this should not be happening. This is like a big miss. But
even if they said, VRRy handheld only, not undocked because, and they didn't give a technical reason, they just said, it's handheld only. That alone would have people would have been like, well, that sucks. It's not docked. So they would have been upset, but they wouldn't be raising the stink they are now. But I mean, from a other side of things, you got to remember, Switch didn't have Bluetooth audio when it launched, even though it had Bluetooth. And they added that years later out of nowhere. So I hope Nintendo are working on it, but at the same time, Nintendo they've never been the techiest games company around. So half the stuff on Switch, like, I wouldn't have expected them to do 120 frames.
Totally.
So I'll say this: I've played Metroid Prime 4 on Switch 2 in 4K 60, and just on whatever TV they had at the event, and it was damn near glorious. But if that had like VRR, turned on, that would just take what looks amazing and make it even better. Will VRR make that game better? I don't know, but I don't think it's going to hurt anything long term. In the short term. But if Nintendo keep doing this, where they announce something and then correct themselves 6 weeks later, I think that's what's going to hurt them. Because, I think, as Michael said, if they were just clear about it at the start, it would have been fine.
I think the big thing that, like, the frustrating thing about this, right, is that, like, if VRR was supported while docked, that would help a lot of the situation around the fact that there's no 4K 120. So you can't have 4K 120 hertz while docked. Now, that isn't a big issue, but without VRR, that means that 40 hertz, like 40 frames per second modes, like one that we see in Cyberpunk 2077, you'll have to drop down to 1440p because there's no way to, like, you would need a 120 hertz container essentially to run at 40 FPS without screen tearing and shit. So you will have to drop down to 1440p to go at 40 frames a second, which is disappointing because there are a lot of games that would benefit from being 40 frames a second instead of 30 frames a second that can't reach 60 frames a second at 4K. So there's a lot of frustrations around this. Now, that doesn't mean those games can't have 40 FPS modes, and, like, let's be real, most games that are struggling to get to 60 are probably not going to be running at 4K anyway. They probably will be running at 1440p regardless. But the other problem is that not every monitor support or TV supports 1440p input. I know that Sony systems have had a lot of troubles with supporting 1440p input. I don't know why. I mean, even cheap TVs can do it, but Sony TVs for some reason can't, or don't. There's a lot of caveats here, and it's like, it's frustrating that this has happened, and hopefully Nintendo has a fix, but I really just wish Nintendo had a fix before they launched the console and not after, or made it very, very clear from the get-go that this was a handheld only thing. And the fact that they haven't is probably the biggest miss that they've had. Since then. And, like,
I feel like what Luke said, like, Nintendo has never been, or at least, in the past X amount of generations, hasn't really been like a techie type of release company, right? This is obviously a big departure from the last, decade and a half for them, where it has been like some really incredible tech in there. But yeah, this is just one of those just cursed moments that when they decide to do some cool tech stuff, they do this big, like, but if you want to, you can't do it this way because X reasons. And like I said, I totally sympathize. I get that it's insanely complicated, but I don't know, man. Like, I'm sick of, and, like, obviously we don't give Nintendo the pass for this, but I'm sick of, like, people giving Nintendo the pass for these decisions like this. I don't think it's good enough for a company like Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And again, I don't necessarily care that, like, the feature isn't there. Like, it would have been really great if the feature was there. The problem is that they just completely messed up the messaging, and, like, in a way that has.
That's the message of Switch 2 from Nintendo, is the messaging is messed up. So.
Well, I think a lot of the instances where, like, the messaging of Switch 2 was, like, people making the worst assumptions, which I do not blame anybody for. Nintendo generally, if like with Nintendo, if you make the worst possible assumption about a situation, you're going to be right because Nintendo makes dumb decisions. In the case of the Switch 2, a lot of people made the worst assumptions, as they have done previously with the Switch, and then it turned out to actually be exactly what Nintendo said. Like, there was no nuance in that. It was just like, oh yeah, Nintendo hasn't said that you won't be able to do this, and yeah, you can do it. So yeah, Nintendo's communication has been like dicey, but like if you took Nintendo at their word, it was usually fine. The problem now is that this is a situation where Nintendo said, hey, you'll be able to do VRR in docked mode. And like, let's not pretend that like these websites weren't made like 6 months ago, right? They have been fine-tuning the marketing material for this product for such a long time and have had basically endless time to get this done. And the fact that they still messed up, and like we know from the Japanese website that like, you know, that shouldn't have been there. The Japanese website never said anything about VRR and TV mode. So people in Japan were never of the false impression that it would.
I will say this. Nintendo recently did this whole weird thing where it's now, instead of being like nintendo.com.au or nintendo.co.uk, it's all now nintendo.com/region. So it's possible that the copy was made in the US because that's where all the sort of English stuff's done initially, and then they just distributed it, and then like Nintendo Australia and Nintendo, UK and Nintendo South Africa and all the other, English-speaking Nintendo branches just put the copy up as they were told to. Because I've spoken with Nintendo staff before, and they generally get told they're not allowed to have a little freedom with stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if the copy just came from the US and they just did what they were told to do. But yeah, still, as I always said, like they'll have been sitting on this copy for months and months. So it shouldn't have happened.
I think the big thing here, especially when it comes to like comms from Nintendo, is that they did this announcement, right? Which actually, as far as a Nintendo announcement is concerned, was quite good. But people had a ton of questions when it came to like the intricacies when it came to certain things, and those questions went off from the press to Nintendo, and they just didn't get answers. And it screams to me that they didn't get answers, not because they were trying to make sure they were 100% correct and, ticking all the boxes. It screams to me that literally nobody knew these answers. They had to actually go figure out what the answers were. And I think that's a little concerning that they didn't have a group of people that went through this stuff and looked at what questions people would have and have them like ready to go. Because like it wasn't like it was like, oh, the direct happened and then 48 hours later people were like, oh, I wonder what this means actually when I look into it. It was like during the direct people were having these questions immediately. So it's just I think they could have done the anticipating consumer and press questions a lot better.
And as I've said in the past, like this is something that only affects the launch of the console, right? Like once we're past the enthusiast people buying it, the people like us, once we're past that, it won't matter. You'll just be able to walk into a store and buy it and whatever. Like the people who like the mass market, they don't give a shit about literally any of this. They don't care about VRR. They have motion smoothing turned on their TV. Like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter beyond the enthusiast market. But unfortunately, we do care about this stuff.
The people who put word of mouth out there to generate why Switch 2 is good are the enthusiasts. The people that care.
I mean, it's still going to have amazing word of mouth at the end of the day.
Yeah, but it's the same with like any new hardware. The moment somebody comes out with new hardware, the people that are really into that will be the ones to like put it out on social media and say, "Hey, I bought this; it's great." They're the people that do that. And if they're asking questions now, they're not going to be starting. They're not going to spruik your product for you. So
don't worry, Luke. There'll be plenty of TikTok influencers who've been paid by Nintendo from various regions to talk about how good the console is. Yeah. We do have to move on. We have had details finally about the free Switch 2 patches for Switch games. So these aren't Switch 2 editions. You don't have to pay for them. Most games are just getting resolution bumps and HDR support in some of them. Some of them are getting frame rate improvements as well. That is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Super Mario 3D World are getting frame rate improvements. We don't know what frame rate they're aiming for, but the games that they've said that there's going to be improved frame rate are all ones that run at 30 FPS. Some of which run at a stable 30 FPS. So it does seem like maybe 60 FPS is on the table. We'll have to see. Pokemon in particular has had a huge glow up, gigantic. So the game definitely seems to be running above 1080p. That is for sure. But it wasn't running at a particularly high resolution previously anyway. And there is more detail. There are way more dynamic shadows and lighting. The resolution is much higher. And a lot more Pokemon can spawn now. So there was a hard limit on 15 Pokemon. Technically, it was 14 Pokemon and a shiny Pokemon that could spawn on the screen at any given time, or in the world at any given time. The pictures that we have, there are at least 21 Pokemon on screen. So the amount of Pokemon that can...
21.
Yeah. Trust me, Luke, I've already counted. So yeah, there were 21 Pokemon on screen, which means that they have actually made changes to how things work in the world, not just like, set the maximum resolution to, 1440p or 4K or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I spotted it in one of somebody did a comparison of the nighttime shot, which I now am showing on the video on this side of the screen. And like just the grass, the amount of grass on the screen, on the ground is it's not the greatest texture. I'm not saying the quality's improved there, but there's more of it. So it's not like 3 blades of grass and a meter of grass texture and then more blades. So it's just the amount of grass blades on the screen is now a thing. So there's more detail in the world, not just like frame bumps, which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, the textures still look like arse. They just look terrible. But running at above 1080p and hopefully at a higher frame rate. I just want a stable frame rate. I would be fine if it was just 30, but like I don't think I've ever seen that game actually hit 30. That's the thing, right? It's like I would be happy with this free update if it just hit 30 and never dropped from 30 ever. That would be a huge improvement. But again, I don't think I've ever seen this game actually hit 30 FPS. 60 would be incredible. Now, I've said this in the Slack. I kind of suspect that what they've done here is that they've used, because it's the same engine, they've used the exact same configuration that they used for Pokemon Legends ZA, which is getting a Switch 2 edition that you have to pay for, and then just applied that to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but knew that they couldn't get away with charging for upgrades to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, a game that Nintendo had to apologize for because it looked and ran like shit, and they never fixed it.
29 million people didn't give a shit that it looked and ran like shit, though. So
that's true. Most people don't care about this kind of technical stuff, which is wild as somebody who does.
To a certain degree, I totally understand that, right? Like, me, when a game drops to 59, I'm like, fuck this game, put it in the bin, right? I'm not expecting that off like everyone else. But like, Pokemon isn't that. Pokemon is bad. And the fact that people are just like, my game is running sub 10 FPS and I can't see what's happening because the fucking pixel count is in the single digits. Like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. But yeah, I suspect that it's probably running at the same frame rate and resolution as Pokemon Legends ZA is on Switch 2. But Nintendo just knows that they can't fuck around with selling it. They can't sell something that is just like, here's how the game should have been. Right? Like, it's a necessary fix for the game. And
I think the only one that I have a small tier for, because I think it just would have looked really beautiful, is no HDR support for 3D World, which just makes me a little bit sad. But like, sure, whatever.
Unfortunately,
that was a Wii U game, so I suspect that's the.
Yeah, so was Treasure Tracker, and that's got HDR support.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Is that 3D World, the 3D World part of 3D World, is a 32-bit app. Now, they're not officially supported on Switch 2, so they can't really make changes to that. The 64-bit apps which is Bowser's Fury and Captain Toad for some reason, they can have things backported to them like HDR and all of that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, 32-bit apps, of which there are like 12 of the like 100 first-party games, 12 of them are 32-bit. Notably, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was a 32-bit app, but in its most recent update, which just like fixed a couple bugs, it got changed to 64-bit. So we could see some Switch 2 editions.
I swear to God, if they release Mario Kart 8 Deluxe,
Super Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
I think that these upgrades are really good. We know that there will be.
I held off playing Echoes of Wisdom for this exact scenario, and it's paid off. I'm so happy. I cannot wait to start playing it
in HDR, and it will almost certainly not have any drops at all.
Yeah.
I will say, I still think it's hilarious that Game Builder Garage is getting an update, because honestly, who's playing that still? But the fact that they're adding mouse control support is just phenomenal, because that game, there's some nodes when you connect them that can be finicky. So having like pointer controls it's a great touch, but it's a weird one.
The Mario Maker community is so amped for mouse support for Maker mode. That would just be insanely good.
Now, this is the thing, right? Is that like the fact that Mario Maker 2 isn't on this list is getting people really excited, because like, does that mean Mario Maker 3 is going to happen and have mouse support? And
a Wonder Tile
set? It probably will, yeah. Like, I think they'll probably have a proper Super Mario Land 2 mode, because that was just sort of like
a lot of people also
Super Mario Brothers 1.
Also speculating Mario 64 like mode. I'm like, I don't know if we'll ever see into 3D for Mario. It would be incredible, don't get me wrong, but like I don't think we'll ever see 3D game support.
It's going to be a Wonder mode, and it's going to be a Game
Mario
Boy
Maker
mode.
3D.
Yeah, it could be a separate game.
Anyway,
I will say too, because I've played Switch 2 at the press preview event for the experience here in Melbourne, and the mouse mode in Metroid Prime was sublime. Like, and you know when they kept saying that, you know, you just have to turn the controller over and put it down, it's a mouse. I kept thinking that was hyperbole, like there'd be a delay, you know, because there always is something wrong with something when they say something like that. But no, it worked. That I had the split Joy-Con and I just literally turned it, put it down, and it just worked straight away. Picking back up straight away, not a problem. Civilization 7, it has a weird thing where whichever one you turn and put it down first, that becomes the mouse. So I put the left one down first, not even thinking, because I'm right-handed, the right one will work. No, the left one was the mouse. So it seems to be sort of omnidirectional, which is great. If other games get mouse support in updates, whatever they happen to be, it would be phenomenal. The only thing that I found interesting is in this list, they all had release dates as of June 5. So all these games, all these updates are rolling out on the day the Switch 2 releases, which, by the by, those servers are going to be absolutely punished with all these games getting updated, downloads, day one console updates. Yeah, good luck with that. But I think the day one patch is just going to be like a single megabyte that unlocks features that are already in there. Probably, but it's still, you know, if they sell 1 million consoles day one. But my point is that if this is just wave one of Switch games getting updates for Switch 2,
better be. Jesus Christ.
What's wave 2 going to feature? What are we getting in wave 2 that has thing? Because Skyward Sword HD had some issues, so if that got a bump in resolution or HDR support, that could be phenomenal.
I want it for Brothership. I said this a million years ago that when I was playing the game, I want to play it, but goddamn, the load times are criminal in that game.
So this is the thing, is that we know at least that load times are fast on Switch 2 naturally. You don't need to update anything for that.
Yoshi's Woolly World. So Yoshi's Crafted World is that example that they showed.
The question I have, and this is my theory on how this is going to work, because I've got the physical edition of Brothership, right? And that's loading off a Switch 1 card, and that's really the limitation of how fast you can load something. So I'm wondering if all Switch games will, like they did with Xbox 360, will they install to the SSD? You know what I mean? And just run off SSD. So like the Switch 1 games essentially act like a key card almost.
I think I think it'll probably be a case of like, in most games, just they'll load as much as possible into the RAM. Like, I don't know, like like Brothership is like 9.9 gigabytes, right? Like there are some things that you don't need to read fast. Like you don't need to read the audio fast. Like that, reading the audio slow would be fine. If they just like load all of the textures for the game into RAM, they're done, right? Like that's already done. So I suspect that will happen on games because like there is like 9 gigabytes of RAM to use for games. Like
I'm just intrigued because like I feel like it'll be really unfortunate to get like a substantially different experience depending on whether you purchase the game digitally or physically for Switch 1 games at least.
I can't imagine they would do it because it's Nintendo. They're thankfully not that, weird about things.
We just don't know.
And we're assuming here that like the Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games that that are using Switch 1 cards and not the Switch 2 edition card that you'll be able to purchase will basically just act as a game key card because that would not work otherwise.
And again, we saw some footage the other day of Hogwarts Legacy on Switch 2, and they showed the Switch 1 version, Switch 2 version. Even if we don't get big updates like that's getting, just a patch alone would improve load times exponentially, which would be enough for me. So that one, what was the other? There was another game on Switch that had some weird load times. I'm drawing a blank on it
Half
now.
of all Switch games?
Yeah, all of them?
Oh, no, The Incredibles. The Lego Incredibles game that released soon after the movie, the second movie did. That the load times on that, I'm talking like minute and a half going in and out of the world. Even if that alone just has better load times because of the Switch 2, capacity or capabilities, I should say, that would be phenomenal. I'm not expecting them to do a Switch 2 edition of that game, but if Switch 2 can just make games that have long load times just load quicker by default, that'll be fine too.
Give me a 60 FPS HDR support mode for Thousand Year Door. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Look, Nerd have been behind some of the big stuff on Switch, so it wouldn't surprise me if they've got some sort of, stuff cooking in the background for Switch 2.
Yeah. All right. A bunch of Nintendo Switch Online games got added to Nintendo Switch Online. There were 3 Mega Drive games. Fire Emblem got added to GBA. That's the GBA one, right?
Yep.
Yes. And Killer Instinct Gold got added to Nintendo 64. So that's very fun. Let's get into the 20 questions because we've been talking for way too long. And imagine if Angelo was here. This would be such a long episode.
Yeah, Angelo never
probably a lot more heated as well. All right. So I have the thing, and I should warn you, this is a Dazza special. I've been talking to Darren, and he came up with a fantastic game. So I do not think you're going to get it, but I hope you do. Ask away.
Are we getting a 1-question freebie because we're down a player?
You can get a one question freebie, or you can trade 2 questions for a hint.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, we've taken 6 weeks off, so we've now got some new rules here. I will say too, I've added some audio effects into the counter. So on the video, which is right below me here, there is the numbers that go through. And now when we lose a number, I put the link getting hit, the sound from Ocarina of Time.
Nice.
If I accidentally move down one too many, or the game master gives us a question back, we've got the heart, pick up a heart noise. So.
Oh, nice. That's lovely.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to start off? Please do.
Was this game released after January 2000?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Was this released after January 2010?
No, it was not.
Okay, cool. So, when age-old favorite of Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, Wii, and GameCube.
And late 64.
And late 64.
It's the largest game libraries that have ever existed.
I will also say, I didn't think about the fact that the noise that Link makes when he takes hit with the one I put on, it goes. So I've heard twice in a matter of
Lovely.
like 30 seconds that noise. I'm gonna laugh every
It's
time.
like the great fairy fountain from 64 sound. Was this a home console?
It was a home console.
Okay.
When it was a game on a home console. It wasn't
Yeah, sorry, it wasn't a home console. We really narrowed it down then. So 60 late 64, GameCube or Wii. Was this a disc? There you go.
I was gonna say, was this released on a small disc?
You just ask if it was a GameCube game.
Yes, it was released on a small disc.
Yeah, but it works well with the sound effects.
Fair.
Sound effects. You'll understand why I had to do it that way.
All right.
So it's a game.
All right, it's a GameCube game. All right, that's not too bad.
I mean, the next big obvious one is, was this game published by Nintendo?
This game was not published by Nintendo.
Because that knocks out quite a few. Unfortunately, GameCube was probably the biggest third-party library we had in a long time, so... Okay, the only other one I can think of is if it's exclusive. Because there was some exclusive games. Was this game exclusive? Sorry, let me rephrase that. Was this game originally released as an exclusive on Nintendo GameCube?
It was not.
Okay. I'll try genre. Was this a racing game?
No.
Okay. Does not fill me with confidence.
In my mind, I've gone to like Billy Hatcher, but that was where I was going. And then with the racing thing, it's like, oh, maybe not Billy Hatcher.
I was thinking of I don't know why. Just Auto Modelista came in my mind.
Yeah,
it felt like a Dazzle game.
Haven't we already had that one though? Did
I
have that one?
Potentially. We've done a lot of these.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look it up now while we try and guess, because I think I've had that one.
Okay. Was this a licensed game? What is happening?
Okay, no, it was not a licensed game.
All right. I don't like that. That was even in question.
It's a weird situation that I can't really explain without completely giving it away. So,
well, that's fucking annoying.
But I think nobody would look at this and be like, "Oh yeah, that's obviously a licensed game." You know, yeah.
Okay, so it could have like licensed things in it, but it's not
licensed.
licensed.
It has licensed things in it, but it's not a licensed game.
Okay.
Well, it can't be Auto Modelista though, because you asked if it's a racing game, and Ollie's confused on whether the game with the car on the front is a racing game or not.
Yeah, but like the fact that I even thought about it, like it has maybe some like racing elements in it.
Yeah, but Auto Modelista is like pure racing. It's not like racing's an option, like driver or.
Yes,
example.
of course. Yeah. That's why I asked if it was a racing game.
Right, so not exclusive. Has this game been re-released on any other platform since its initial publication?
It has not.
Because that knocks out all those, collections and just HD versions and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking of some of the James Bond games, because they were... There's quite a few on thing, but obviously that's clearly licensed though.
Yeah. Was this game made in North America?
This game was made in North America.
Okay.
Because there are a bunch of like Ubisoft titles on the platform, some IDOS stuff that was on the platform.
Was this game made by EA?
This game was not made by EA.
Now I'm trying to think what might be there. this is not a question, but this is a clarification question. Would we consider something like the Tom Clancy games to be licensed, given that Ubisoft are the only people that make them and they have the rights to it? Like, they're not licensing it from a corporation, but it's technically a license?
I would personally classify that as a licensed game.
I think it's licensed in the same way that the Spider-Man games are licensed, in that, like, it is based on a property that is not entirely original to the company.
Yeah, but Ubisoft
even if loosely based.
Yeah, but Ubisoft now own the Tom Clancy rights. That's why it's.
Yeah, I mean, it gets trickier now. Like 10 years ago, it would have been very clear cut.
10 years ago, definitely.
Okay, I think if you were to ask 9 out of 10 dentists if that was a licensed game, they would say yes. So
the other one would go.
I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to be straight up with it. Is not a Tom Clancy game.
Okay.
You get that one for free.
Because it is one of those ones where it's like it falls into that grey area. All right, I get it. The fact that it has some form of racing in it is the part that's throwing me, because I'm thinking like Hitman Absolution was made in Denmark, so that's sorry, Hitman Blood Mummy. No, hang on.
I was thinking like Simpsons Hit and Run. That's not been re-released, and that was multi-platform, but that's
definitely a license.
Definitely a license though. Oh man, how many questions have we done?
We've got 9 to go, so 8 questions and a guess.
Is that including
I'm wondering...
the freebie?
No, because it's a freebie.
Have you already used up the freebie, or is that just being counted separately?
I mean, I just won't take it off if it's a freebie.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I can add 1 back to the counter, so it keeps the count going. But
it's fun. I'm wondering if we will get the developer or publisher. Like I want the mid 2000s were just rife full of like single game like releases. So I'm just like,
okay,
I'm
gonna help you out a bit here, because like you will not get the developer, but you will have heard of the publisher.
Okay, interesting.
It's making me think Acclaim.
Could be Acclaim. Could be Activision.
Could be Midway. Midway made a lot of games.
Could be THQ.
Yeah. Like THQ, most of their stuff was licensed. That was like the license period for them. Is the publisher still in business?
Mm-hmm.
Let me check. Fuck, that's such a difficult question.
Okay, is the publisher under the original publishing name still in business?
That's an even more difficult question. I will say this publisher has gone out of business. That is how I'm choosing to answer that question.
Okay, that's fair.
So they've gone out of business, which means they've come back. Now it's like, what studios have come back online recently?
That certainly mean they've come back online, but yeah, that's the way I'm also interpreting this answer.
Because the Acclaim name is sort of back, but it's not back.
It's back in POG form.
Yeah.
Is Midway fully dead still?
Yeah, they're fully dead. Because Warner Brothers own that.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it, if they rebranded WB Games to Midway, they'd probably have more success. But I don't think they did a lot on GameCube that wasn't licensed in some form.
Was this published by Acclaim?
Game was published by Acclaim.
There we go. All right. We're 1 ahead. Acclaim games.
So there was Vex, Sphinx. Sphinx got re-released though, that doesn't count. Turok Evolution.
We won't have heard of the developer.
Well, I mean, maybe you have, but I certainly haven't. So
okay, it's an odd one. Like it's not a well-known one, at least. It's not a racing game. Oh, sorry. It's not a pure racing game.
That knocks out Extreme G, because that's definitely a racing game.
I was thinking about Burnout. That's very much a racing game. But also, made by Criterion, so we have definitely heard of them. Acclaim games. I'm trying to remember like the startup to games. For some reason, my brain is only full of racing games. Like I was just like, was Crazy Taxi done by Acclaim? I'm pretty sure they were at some point.
That was Sega.
Like, yeah, but I think, I don't know. I remember seeing their logo at the beginning of the game.
Version?
I don't remember. I remember playing Crazy Taxi at some point and seeing the Acclaim logo, but I could be misremembering. Oh god, why Acclaim? It's just like the most dead fucking publisher.
Because I'm trying to think, because it wasn't Switch exclusive, and Switch exclusive, it wasn't GameCube exclusive, and they were pretty much multi-platform back then. It not being re-released means it's not. Well, most of the stuff that's come back from them has been Nintendo 64 based.
I think you said that we would have heard of this game, right? I think that's something you said at some point. Like, this is a game that we would know.
I think the game. Yes, I think you would have heard of the game. I think the story of the game, not just the game itself, is something that you would have heard of. Yeah.
It's infamous. Interesting.
It's infamous, yes. Or famous. Maybe there's just a lot going around it. No, it's infamous, yeah.
I was gonna say Infamous was made by PlayStation. So.
Oh my god. Imagine you took that as like a guess. Like, it is not Infamous. One guess down. Fucking Acclaim games. I'm like struggling to even think of any.
So I'm honestly just trying to think what games they've made. Because I've got, like, Vex was there, and I remember Vex because it came out. Oh, it was in one of those super cheap discount, not releases, but it was like $9 for a long time at EB, because it was the same with Turok Evolution on GameCube. They were both super cheap, and I remember we could never actually keep them in stock. So I'm trying to think now what other games there were. My brain went to Minority Report, but that was Activision.
Is this okay? This is gonna be a really like left field question. Is this a game that's like extremely dated to the period?
Yeah, big time.
Okay, so it's something that's like quintessentially like 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Or like late 90s, I guess maybe as well, but around that period.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I would say, just to give, a little bit of context, I would say this game has aged extremely poorly and 100% will not get made in 2025.
Okay. It's a licensed game. Sorry, it's a... No, wait, yeah. Did we say it was licensed? Like, I'm blanking out on questions now.
It's not licensed.
Not licensed, but question mark.
Aspects
to
it.
I know what it is. I know what it is.
Go.
Is this game a sports game?
This game is a sports game. I think Lucas.
What? Okay, go. Give me some hints that I can come to this conclusion on my own.
This game, I'm pretty sure this game had a mode about topless people on bikes.
What? What the fuck?
So, because I kept going to aggressive inline, because I love aggressive inline. It was like
is that the game?
No, that was like the rollerblading version of Tony Hawk, right? Activision had Dave Mirra's BMX. It was like their second attempt at the Tony Hawk stuff, and Acclaim went, well, we can do that too. So they made a game called BMX XXX, and it's basically just Dave Mirra but with nudity.
I've never heard of this fucking game.
Because it was one of those ones that didn't get released here at first because the characters were topless and you could see boobs on a video game screen. This was around the hot coffee time.
How have I never fucking heard of this? This is completely skipped my brain.
Because it's the only thing I can. The way Ollie said that it wouldn't get made today. Because Acclaim, a lot of their stuff was fine, but then occasionally they would just come out of nowhere with, random bullshit. And this is one of them. Because I remember working at EB Games and somebody wanted to buy it, and we had the modded, the Australian version, and they brought it back, and they ended up buying it from New Zealand because New Zealand had the R rating, so they could get the topless version of a really bad game because they wanted to see digital boobs.
Amazing. Okay, well, it's an easy question to ask we think it's that, and is it a BMX game? Like,
is that what you're asking?
It's up to Luke if you think it is.
Honestly, the way Ollie described it wouldn't get made today. It's the only one that makes sense to me because Aggressive Inline is full of licensed stuff.
I feel like games with digital boobs are even more popular today.
No, this wasn't just the fact that they were nude. It was like that's why it was XXX because it was like really out there. Does this game feature BMX in the title?
Does feature BMX in the title?
Okay, then it has to be that. I've never. Okay, yeah, this is all you. I've never heard of this game.
And now let me just double check to make sure there's no other BMX games from Acclaim that I can think of. I don't think there is because I'm pretty sure they did Aggressive Inline, then they did this one, and I think they did a motorbike game. And I think that's what killed them, is because they were doing, they were just trying to pump out so many games, and they just failed. Because that's why they didn't publish Burnout 3. It's because they just didn't have the funds, so Criterion went elsewhere, and that's how EA picked them up.
I'm Googling this game because I want to see what it looks like.
This is one of those ones where I won't put the cover on the screen. I always put, the box art of the game on the screen, so people can see what it is. I will not be doing that for this one, because...
I'm looking at the cover for the Xbox version, and it's completely safe. It's boring as hell. It literally just says BMX XXX. That's it.
Yeah, that's not the cover.
Okay, well, that's the cover that I'm looking at.
Yeah, that is a cover.
That is a version, right?
Yeah. All right, I have to ask it. Is this game BMX XXX?
All right, that's your final guess?
Yeah. If it's not that, I'm walking out.
It has to be, right?
So... released in 2002 in North America and the UK, but much later in 2003 in Australia. This game was a sequel in the Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX series, so it was part of the series. It started its development as Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 3, and subsequently following the success of Grand Theft Auto, changed concept to include nude, topless women. Now, there were licensed aspects to this game, in the fact that they licensed footage from a strip club, which was played as full motion video in game. And the better you did in levels, the more nude the ladies were in the things. Anyway, this game was banned in Australia. And then subsequently got heavily edited and re-released, but it is the game that effectively brought down Acclaim Entertainment. It is BMX XXX. This is the game that Dave Mirra was so furious about this that he sued Acclaim afterwards for damaging his name and legacy. And it effectively just was what took Acclaim out of business. This is the reason Acclaim isn't around anymore. And it does have a uniquely Australian story because it did get banned in Australia. Didn't come out until late 2023.
I skipped all information about this game. I had no fucking idea.
Yeah.
And I remember it. I remember it because I was working at EB Games, and the amount of 15-year-old boys that came. Oh, he got BMX XXX.
As I said, this game would absolutely never get made in 2025. Not only does it have a lot of objectification of women, and nudity is, it's whatever, right? Nudity is in games, but it has a lot of that. But it also has just an extraordinary amount of racism. like a lot of racism. Yeah. I literally cannot go into any more detail than that because I think this podcast would be ruined forever if I even mentioned what there was. But yeah, it is a bad game that very much took a claim out of business because of that. So yeah, wild. It was also censored on the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 version was censored worldwide because Sony was like, no, we're not doing that with topless women in it.
Because this was all around the time when Manhunt came out, right? The first Manhunt.
Yep. So yeah, it was a very controversial thing. I'm really surprised you haven't heard of it, Michael. It seems like the kind of thing that, especially a GameCube game.
Oh, sorry, it sounds like the kind of thing. What? You want to finish that
you
sentence?
Would have heard of, but you would be on top of not.
No, I don't know. I feel like it's completely like missed me like entirely. I didn't even remember it in the period
initially. And again, the only reason I remember it so vividly is because there was an Xbox display unit in the store, and we always had Tony Hawk in it or Halo, because Halo people loved, but the store kept getting complaints from parents going, "Oh, it's a violent game," so they kept putting Tony Hawk on. And then when Aggressive Inline came out, it was like something different that wasn't Tony Hawk. And it was, because I'm looking at the box art now, it says AKA Acclaim. That was like their sports edgy brand. And I remember Aggressive Inline had it. Bike Superstar, something Superstar had it. And then this had it. And there was another game as well. It was the fourth one. And then we saw this finally came out. And my mate Lyndon put it in the console before the store opened to see what it was. And it was like, nope, that game cannot be shown in store.
Yeah. No, I remember it very vividly getting a lot of like a current affair fucking today tonight segments. Like it was every night they were like, oh, this is a controversial video game, and then like people started importing it from New Zealand, and it's like, oh, they're breaking Australia's laws to fucking import the topless women. Like there was a lot of nonsense about it, but that quickly went away because there were other things that happened in controversy, etc. Because
a year later was when Hot Coffee, the GTA San Andreas Hot Coffee thing came out.
Exactly.
So that was around that time that prick in South Australia was like, blocking adult rating for video games. I can't think of his name now because he's such an arsehole. I've forgotten it. But he was doing that, like everything that was like anything remotely sexist or sexual or drugs or whatever in games. He was like, nope, can't do it. Blah, blah, blah. When he finally left office is when we finally got our R18. So.
Alrighty. So
I was going to say, we forgot to talk about the greatest announcement of this week, which is that Cookie Clicker is coming to Switch.
It's true. Cookie Clicker is coming to Switch. Huge news.
Rest in peace, everybody. This will consume your soul if you haven't played it before. Godspeed.
Can it technically be called Cookie Clicker when you don't click anything on Switch? Unless you have to click in like the right thumbstick?
I mean, I'm assuming there's a Switch 2 version coming that will very much allow you to click things.
Alrighty, so that about wraps up this episode of the Vookcast. Long one this week, but it's been 6 weeks, so yeah. Be sure to visit the site, vooks.net, for all your Nintendo news, reviews, and everything in between. Keep up to date. You can follow the site on Blue Sky, which is at vooks.net, surprisingly. On jumping over to our Discord at bit.ly/VooksDiscord. You can find all of our social information and links for all of the stories covered in this episode in the episode notes. On whatever platform you're listening to, I will try to get as many of those links in as possible, but it may not happen. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next show. G'day folks, and welcome to the Vookcast, Australia's Nintendo podcast. My name's Oliver Brandt, and in this episode I'm joined by Michael Goncalves. Fuck me, I'm just going to start that again. I haven't stuffed up an intro in like 40 episodes.
It's been a long time.
We haven't had an episode in like 6 weeks. You're rusty.
It's true, yeah.
So I'll just tag that at the end of the episode in the video.